Well, holy smokers, folks, look at this. Cue up the 2018-2019 vibes. It's a video in which we're gonna talk about Tesla stock. For those of you that have been watching me for years and years, you remember back 2018, 2019, we used to talk about Tesla stock all the time. I'd run through projections on the stock, things like that, okay? And I'd talk about my long-term bullish thesis on Tesla, and it was a beautiful, beautiful time, all right? And fast forward to today, and I hardly ever talk about Tesla stock, but that ends today, okay? We've got to talk about this stock in detail. And I want to run you through a lot of projections I have for this company in terms of what they're going to hit over the coming years. But more importantly in this video, I actually want to go through the bullish and the bear case around this stock, and I really want to lay it out. I really want to lay out the bull case around the stock, and I really actually want to lay out the bear case in the stock, because I feel like right now is probably the biggest moment for Tesla stock since probably about 2018 or so, when the stock was dealing with a lot of drama. And at that time, the shorts really had control over the narrative of the stock and the vibes of the stock and how people communicate about the stock. They were really in full control back then. Nowadays, the longs are in full control in this stock, okay? But I think both sides are extremely misunderstood. And that's why I want to really do a video where we really lay out the bearish case and the bullish case. Because what I find time and time again is you're going to see just the bullish case around Tesla, right? And right now, you hardly ever even see the bearish case around the stock. And the reason being is obviously because the longs are in control, right? It was very difficult to come out and speak positively about Tesla stock back when I was doing it, right? I remember one day I released a video on my full bull thesis around Tesla stock and how I thought I was going to, be a beast in the future, and I went through all the numbers and everything, okay? The next day, something dramatic happens. I don't remember what it was. Tesla stock went down 12% the next day. This is back in like 2018. And I got absolutely destroyed in the comments, and people were calling me an idiot, and I had no clue what I was talking about, and it was just a Ponzi scheme of a company or something like that, okay? And man, did I receive so much hate for that video. It was a very, very different time to talk about Tesla back then, right? And so anyways, guys, yeah, I'm going to take you guys through all this. I hope you really enjoy a video like this, because I don't think anybody's really doing it like this. Like most of the time, like I said, it's just you're either going through your bullish case, or it's just a negative article written about Tesla. And I really want to actually lay this stuff out, because like I said, I think both sides are really misunderstood in the scenario, and I want to give my 2 cents on where I see things going over time for Tesla stock. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this. All I ask in return is that you smash that like button. That's literally it, guys. I appreciate you being here. I hope you appreciate me doing a Tesla video. If you're looking to join us in Stock Hub, that's our free Discord chat. That's our free stock market Discord chat. It's the best out there. That will be pinned comment down there. Also, if you have any stock market related questions for me, go ahead, shoot me a text. I try to get back to a few people a day. All right. So what I want to go through here first is the bullish case around Tesla, and then we'll get into the kind of the issues here and kind of my 2 cents on this whole subject about the bulls versus the bears in the scenario, right? Now, just in case somebody's new and they've never watched my channel before, like I have a lot of Tesla shares. I made a ton of money on Tesla stock over the years, and it was definitely a game changer for me and my best stock ever. And I'm a Tesla bull for the long term, and I still hold a ton of Tesla shares, okay? So I just want to make sure that's known for full disclosure here, all right? Now, Tesla, year 2030, I can see this company doing 10 million electric vehicles a year. By the year 2030, it is almost impossible for me to imagine people still buying internal combustion engine cars or vehicles in general, right? Like, it's just unfathomable. Like even 5 years from now, I have a lot of trouble seeing that. Never mind in the year 2030, it's almost impossible for me to see somebody like being like, I'm gonna go buy a new car and it's gonna be an internal combustion engine. Like, no, that's just ridiculous, okay? I feel like right now we're at like the year 2007, 2008, right? When, smartphones were starting to, take off and get a little popular. And, if you look to the future, it was like, man, is there ever gonna be a day where people aren't buying smartphones? And nowadays it's like, who do you know that doesn't have a smartphone? Like, of course, everybody has a smartphone. I see that playing out with EVs. I think it's very realistic actually for Tesla to be moving 10 million cars a year. 10 million cars a year will put them as probably the biggest EV company in the world at that time. If not, maybe they'll be number 2. I can see them doing that type of volume, especially as long as they launch a $25,000 EV out there, okay, a Tesla. I think that is fully doable when you think about the next 8 or 9 years of progress for Tesla, you think about just like, imagine how much progress Tesla has made over the last 8 or 9 years. From 8 or 9 years ago, Tesla was like seen as kind of like a joke of a car company, right? And now that every car company in the world wants to be Tesla, right? And so we've had all that play out over the last 8 or 9 years. What do you think is going to happen over the next 8 or 9 years, especially as long as Elon Musk is leading that company, pushing them forward with the brilliant folks that work at Tesla? And I've been fortunate to have a lot of those folks join the private stock group over time. And these people are you know, they're very intelligent, let's just put it that way, okay? And imagine the team that Tesla will have in 5 years from now, 7 years from now. Never mind the team they have today, which is amazing, and they're pulling off all these amazing things. So yeah, 10 million EVs is you know, not crazy to imagine at all if you're looking at a bullish scenario for the stock. If they're doing 10 million vehicles per year in the year 2030, and the average selling price is $35,000, which I think might be a little low. Think about inflation. Think about, you know, the price of cars and how much more expensive they've gotten over the last 10 years, 20 years. And think about the step up a Tesla is nowadays, never mind what it will be in 10 years from now or 9 years from now. You know, I think it might be a little low, me doing average selling price at $35,000. But if we do that, you got $350 billion of revenue just there alone at 10 million cars a year, right? That's, you know, right now it's at a $700 billion market cap. It's not, you know, impossible to imagine, you know, at least 10% of that hitting the bottom line, meaning at least $35 billion, if not maybe 20%, because I believe the margins Tesla will be able to command for their cars over time is going to be exponentially higher. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that $70 billion plus could be hitting the bottom line, right? And once again, we're at a 700 something billion dollar market cap, and that's just the EV business. And that's at average selling price, once again, of $35,000, which might be insanely low if we're looking out 9 years from now, okay? Autonomous driving. So now let's imagine if they're doing 10 million cars a year, if they're selling just 5 million, so just 50% of those cars are selling autonomous capabilities in it, like full autonomy, right? That would be probably a pretty poor number for Tesla, because by that time I expect everybody to want, you know, a fully autonomous driving car. Like, I think it's going to be almost impossible to imagine like buying a car that can't drive itself. Like, what are you doing in the year 2030 if you're getting a car and it can't drive itself? And so I think that's going to be like a must, but let's just say hypothetically, only half of people buying a Tesla actually upgrade to the full autonomous driving system, okay? And let's assume that that system doesn't go up in price over the coming years. Let's assume, you know, for the next 9 years, it's always $10,000. Right there, you got another $50 billion of revenue. Now, keep in mind, the high majority of that money is pure profit for Tesla. Tesla puts up the upfront, obviously R&D for that, and all the expenses for that upfront. But like the actual autonomous driving system, if they sell $10,000 package, like that is almost all pure profit for this company. So keep that in mind. This $50 billion number. Once again, that's assuming only half the people get the package and the price never goes up and it's always $10,000 for full autonomy with your Tesla, okay? So these are some things to think about. You know, once again, these numbers are not the most bullish numbers you'll see in regards to Tesla, and these are numbers I think is doable. The autonomous taxi network. Now, this is one that I think is extremely hard to wrap your head around and try to project in any major way on what the autonomous taxi network will be in 2030. First off, there's a lot of people that they can't even like conceptualize the idea of autonomous taxi networks being a thing in 5 years from now, or especially in the year 2030, right? They're looking at that and they're like, how's that going to be a realistic possibility? Well, let's keep in mind, we're in the year 2021. And if you have the most advanced full self-driving vehicle, a Tesla, right? The car does 95, 98% of the driving. So we're almost to a point where these cars are doing 100% of the driving, right? And likely going to get to a place very, very soon where these cars are doing, you know, driving at a much higher level than even the best drivers, right? Which we know some drivers out there are just horrible drivers, right? I wouldn't be surprised if in the next year or two, these systems are better than some of the bad drivers out there. But even the best drivers, I think these systems will be able to get to a place over the next 3 or 5 years that it's far exceeding even the best drivers, even the most cautious drivers, right? So if we're in that type of scenario, it's not out of the realm of possibility at all that the company is going to start generating autonomous taxi network money at some point in this decade, maybe even in the next 5 years, and the business will scale and scale and scale. The problem is no one can really put an exact date on that, right? It's not like you can be like, in 2023, they're going to be doing this exact number. That's way too hard to guess because it's not playing out yet, right? So I've seen numbers thrown out there for year 2030, this company doing anywhere from $10 $10 billion of autonomous taxi network revenue, right? Because Tesla's gonna, basically it's gonna be Uber and Lyft, but instead of Uber and Lyft, you're gonna have a Tesla come pick you up, and it's not gonna have a driver, and it's just gonna drive you wherever you wanna go, right? And I've seen estimates as much as $1 trillion in revenue, okay? I have no clue, okay? I'm not even gonna put a number on that because, like I said, there's too many variables there. There's no doubt in my mind that autonomous taxi network is gonna be a big thing for Tesla in 2030. No doubt in my mind. Where the doubt is how big of a thing it is, what year does that launch, how long does it take to scale that business in a meaningful way, right? And so, it can be anywhere in there, and this is just one of those wild cards when you're looking at this, and if you're super bullish in the stock and you're like, dude, they're going to be doing 200 billion, 300 billion, 400 billion of revenue from the autonomous taxi network, you start to run some numbers and you're like, this market cap's a joke when you kind of take into account the fact that that business can be obviously very, very profitable. Like Uber and Lyft would be incredibly profitable business models if they just didn't have a driver in the car, okay? The old CEO, Travis of Uber, he said it at a meeting one time. He's like, man, we'd make so much money if it's just that driver takes all the dang money, okay? Just some kind of food for thought there, right? Energy business, batteries. We know Tesla's been working on their own battery cells. Imagine where that's going to be in 5 or 10 years from now. And imagine Tesla is the main battery supplier for most EV companies. Because, assuming Tesla's not going to be the only EV company in the world, what if Tesla has the best technology and sells that to all these other companies? Imagine the business Tesla can generate from just the skateboard effect, that they're just selling the battery plate to you, right? I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all, that Tesla's going to have the best batteries, if not already the best batteries, especially 5 or 10 years from now, right? So what can that business generate? The battery pack business, the solar business, like the energy business, 100 billion to 300 billion is not hard to imagine at all for that business in the year 2030, once again, right? And some people even have the energy business actually becoming a bigger business than the car business. So this is more food for thought there. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that, but I do feel very confident that 100 billion to 300 billion this company will be doing in energy related revenue in the year 2030. Then you have service revenue. Service revenue, you gotta understand, like if the company's selling 5 million cars, 7 million cars, 10 million cars plus a year, and they have an autonomous taxi network, things are gonna go wrong with the cars. Things are gonna break with the cars. Cars will end up needing new battery packs in them, things like that, right? And then imagine all the subscription revenue Tesla's gonna generate over time as well. It's not out of the realm of possibility that this company's doing $30 to $50 billion easily in terms of service revenue, right? And that is going to be, in my opinion, a very, very profitable business, especially when you talk about the recurring revenue streams that this company will have, very similar to how Apple has taken their business to all-time highs and best levels ever, right? The services revenue is key. So, I think those numbers are probably low. The 30 to 50 billion, I feel like that's like, a Curry 3 going up wide open, okay? Logistics, the semi, robots, these are all things that Tesla's working on. You don't know like how powerful these things will become. The logistics business, imagine they already are making semis, right? They haven't started really selling them in the real world, but that's already a product out there, right? And imagine the semis can drive themselves perfectly, much better than a driver could. And imagine potentially it's even like 4 or 6 semis directly behind each other. Maybe somehow those semis are transferring energy. Maybe those semis have solar on top of them, so maybe they can go for much longer distances. And imagine like how advanced the technology will be in those semis by the year 2030, right? And obviously, Tesla is building out as really an artificial intelligence company at its core. So imagine what Tesla can do around logistics. And could Tesla end up becoming one of the biggest logistic companies in the world? We'll have to see. It's another wild card that's out there, and you put all the pieces together and you start to put all this together and like, this is actually a real possibility, right? Robots, that's another one of those things. Like, you gotta understand, with a lot of these, they don't even peak. These businesses don't even peak this decade. The autonomous taxi network, autonomous driving, the energy business, logistics, robots, like none of that stuff even peaks in this decade. That's the biggest thing to remember in this. This is stuff that's going to be even way bigger in the year 2035 and 2045, right? This is stuff that's just at its infancy. Even electric vehicles, Tesla's core business, even though Tesla's been building out that phenomenal for the past decade, that is still an infant business, right? Tesla still has a small market share. It is still an infant business. And so imagine where these business models are going to be years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. Like I said, a lot of these, they don't peak anytime soon. Like autonomous taxi networks, I don't know when those businesses peak, but it's probably 30, 50 years from now. Like it's so far in the future, you can't even see it, right? The energy business, like when does that peak? Like it's so far from now, you can't even imagine it peaking. Electric vehicles in general, like when does that peak? I don't know, year 2040? Like, these business models are so far into the future in terms of where they peak at. I don't think that even registers into a lot of investors' mind, like how far away these things are from peaking and reaching the top, right? And think about how many of these business models that Tesla's really in the forefront of, right? And then you have the other stuff category, which is, more wild cards, which, I mean, think about what Tesla's pulled off over the last 9 years, once again, right? And think about all the products that 9 years ago people couldn't even conceive of the Model 3. People couldn't even conceive of the Cybertruck and all these, basically warehouses and facilities Tesla has now, where they have one in Berlin, Germany, and obviously massive facilities in Shanghai, China, and now multiple facilities in the United States, and probably a lot more coming over the coming years, right? People couldn't even imagine that 9 years ago. Cars driving themselves. A lot of people couldn't even register that as being a realistic possibility. And now I get into my Teslas, and if I want the Tesla to do 90% plus of the driving, it does 90% plus of the driving for me, right? And so think about all that Tesla has pulled off with not nearly as much of resources and confidence behind them like they have nowadays, right? The company has more resources now than ever before, and by a mile. Like it's nothing for the company to hire out a ton more engineers, top-level engineers. Think about the type of talent that wants to work at Tesla now. If you are a top-level engineer, you probably want to work at Tesla because they're doing big stuff. They're doing some of the biggest stuff in the world. Versus 9 years ago, you worked at Tesla, like you were taking a big risk, and people are like, I don't know what that is, some EV car company, or you're taking a risk getting a job over there. Nowadays, you get a job at Tesla, and people are like, good for you, man. You're a legend for that, right? Totally different situation. So imagine the other products that we aren't even talking about here that are coming over the coming years. And with all great companies, they do that. With Apple, they've always been able to do that, where they've come up with new product services that you never even saw coming, and then they build those into multi-billion, if not $10 billion plus businesses. That is going to play out like this in my eyes in regards to Tesla. So if we're thinking about the bullish case on this stock, people are looking at this stock and they're like, it's a $700-something billion market cap. And you look at this that's coming over the next decade, plus the fact is most of these businesses are likely going to be exponentially bigger in the next decade, 2030 through 2040, than they're actually going to be in this decade. This is like the infancy decade, right? And so you play this out and bulls are looking at this and they're like, dude, 700 billion, like that's a joke. Even though the stock went up a lot over the last couple of years, the bulls are looking at this for the most part and saying, that's a joke. That's a holy smokers joker's number. That's just like this company's on its way to becoming a multi-trillion-dollar company over the next, by the year 2030, right? A lot of bulls feel like this company's on its way to anywhere from a $3 trillion market cap to a $7 trillion market cap by the year 2030, okay? As far as me personally, if Tesla executes well, which I have, since I've been in the stock, I've seen them do nothing, and even before I was in the stock, I've seen them do nothing but execute way better than anybody really expected. Even a lot of the bulls, right? I think this can definitely be anywhere from a $2 to $4 trillion company in the year 2030 if they really execute on as high a level as they have been basically for the past 9 years over the next 9 years. I think it's definitely possible for this to be a multi-trillion-dollar company in the year 2030, okay? Now, with that being said, now that we've gone through that bullish case, I want to give the bears a legit shot here. I want to run through their bearish case, and I want to explain why I think bears are misunderstood just as much as the bulls are misunderstood. Well, howdy there, folks, and welcome in. I am sophisticated now. I am a Tesla bear now, and I wear a suit jacket. Because you guys know all the time, you know, the bulls wear t-shirts and flip-flops, and the bears around Tesla, they wear nice little jackets, okay? So now let's put on our bearish hat around Tesla, right? And let's see somebody's view of this company from the bearish side, which I think is fair. You got to always play this out, right? So if you're on the bearish side, you're looking at the stock and you're saying, price to sales ratio of 20. What? I mean, companies usually in the automobile space trade at a price to sales ratio of, I don't know, 1, sometimes even under 1. Like a price to sales ratio is crazy at 20 for, you know, an automaker, right? Which Tesla, if you're on the bearish side, you're saying, you know, call this company whatever you want. But where do they actually get their money from? It's automobiles. You can call it this, you can call it that, but they're actually making all their money, all the money coming in through the door, it's coming from automobile sales. So how's it not an automobile company if all their revenue, for the most part, like 90% plus of it's coming from automobiles, right? If you're on the bearish side. So you're looking at that and you're like, what? This is crazy, okay? You're looking at a trailing 12-month PE of 393 in the stock. You look at a forward P of over 100 when most of the automakers will usually trade at well under 20, and a lot of them under a 10 forward P ratio. And so if you're on the bearish side of the stock, you're looking at a forward P of 100 plus, that looks silly, that looks ridiculous, right? You're looking at a company that sold 500,000 EVs roughly last year in 2020, and meanwhile you have people saying they're going to get to 10 million over the next 9 years. People, you know, if you're on the bear side of the stock, you're like, that's crazy. Even if this company 10x'd, which would be a huge move up in the amount of EVs sold, right? 10x'd, that would be 5 million, right? So 10 million seems almost inconceivable if you're on the bearish side of the stock. You're looking at a company that, let's see here for a second, okay? The last 5% of driving is the hardest. And we're talking about autonomous driving being a realistic possibility within the next few years. And autonomous taxi networks taking off in a real way at some point in this decade. Meanwhile, if you're on the bearish side, you know, flat out, like that last part is by far and away the hardest part. Like, humans would probably never get in an accident if it was only about the 95% of driving, right? And all you had to do was just manage to stay in your lane and things like that. The hard part with driving is when somebody makes a mistake and somebody runs that red light, and you got to account for that. When a pedestrian just comes out of nowhere sprinting across the street, right? And you got to account for that. When, you know, somebody takes that arrow when they shouldn't have taken that arrow, you got to account for that. I was at a stoplight in Arizona a couple weeks ago, and literally my arrow turns green to turn left. I was the first car up, okay? But I'm looking, and this truck looks like it's going to start going, so I don't proceed right away. Usually people just go, phew, but I start kind of creeping out there, and this truck just goes straight across. They had a clear red light, and they just like had a brain fart, and I don't know, they thought their light was green or something like that, and it was red, and everybody else is looking at them like, what are you doing, dude? If I would have taken that, they would have hit me, right? That's the part of driving that is where accidents happen and where people get hurt and people die. And if you're a good driver, you can account for those things. And if you're a little lucky too, right, you can account for those things. But that's the hard part of driving. That's by far and away the hardest part. The hardest part is not staying in the lanes and trying to, you know, recognize things like that. It's about all that difficult stuff. And so if you're on the bearish side, you're looking at this and you're like, dude, that last part could take another decade, if not multi-decades, to accomplish that part. Meanwhile, you know, the bulls are saying that that's going to be in the bag in the next couple of years, right? So you got to understand from their context, they have a point. That's by far and away the hardest. Obviously, you know, I don't want to get into kind of the bear versus bull part now. I'm just trying to focus on the bearish part right now, right? But obviously we can make some arguments against that, right? Next thing, if you're bearish on the stock, you say the competition is finally here. Like, we've been hearing about the competition. The competition's coming for Tesla for a long time. It's actually here. Like, you can actually see it in the real world. Like, I see the Mustang SUVs that are electric all the time out here in Vegas now. Like, that's become commonplace, right? And so now that that is commonplace, the competition is more and more realistic by the day, by the month, by the year. And we're going to see more and more competitors in the EV space popping up, new competitors, and the old dogs are going to sell more and more EVs, you know, over the coming years. Like, if that's where the market's going, like, you got to do it, right? And they're all investing heavily heavily to do this. So the competition is actually finally here, and it will be here a lot more over the coming years. And so if you're bearish on the stock, you're looking at this and you're like, haha, Tesla, you enjoyed your, basically monopoly on the EV industry. That's going away now. Some food for thought there. If you're bearish on the stock, you're saying stuff like robots, like Tesla showing off robots, recently, like serious, like robots. If you're bearish on the stock, you're looking at that and you're saying, this is just another attention grabber for Elon Musk. Like robots, like give me a break, okay? That sounds ridiculous. Like you think they're going to be iRobot now and like, come on, right? And so if you're bearish on that, you're like, this is just ridiculous, right? Then you're looking at this and you're saying at the end of the day, this company, their core business is selling automobiles. And this company's never even done big boy volumes. Big boy volumes are when you sell millions of cars around the world in a given year. Tesla sold 500,000 cars last year. And even if you're bullish on the stock like I am and many folks are, you got to admit they got a point there. They haven't done big boy volumes yet. Doesn't mean they can't do it. It's just they haven't done it yet, right? It's a lot different when, selling 10 million cars a year versus selling 500,000 cars a year and dealing with the logistics and the part problems and all the situations and difficulty you have when you're dealing with a company that's selling millions and millions of volume of anything, never mind automobiles in a given year versus what they're doing right now, right? And the last part here is folks that are bearish on the stock will say, dude, you need $30 to $70 billion just to make the current valuation make sense of net income per year, right? Bears will say, like, you need at least 30 to 70 billion of net income per year to make the current valuation make sense on this at 700 plus billion, right? And so that's the bearish case around this, right? And so I look at all this, and I think both sides are completely misunderstood. I don't think the bears really take into account this scenario and how well Tesla's executed over the last 9 years. And as long as Tesla can do that, it's not out of the realm of possibility that these are all very, very realistic, right? If Tesla just completely drops the ball and gives up the leadership positions they have in all these markets, that's a totally different story. But who's to say they're just going to give that up, right? On the flip side, I don't think a lot of the bulls look at the valuation and where the stock currently trades at and thinks about like what type of net income they're going to have next year and what type of PE ratio that looks at, right? And so I don't think a lot of people from that context really think about that. And so this is why I look at Tesla stock and I see a stock that is going to be a battleground for the next year or two where bulls and bears are going to fight it out. And I think the company's valuation is going to be all over the place for the next 1 to 2 years. I think all of a sudden it's going to be at 800, 900 billion. I think next thing you know it's going to be at 500, 600 billion. That's what we've seen playing out for the past 6+ months, right? Or actually probably about 9 months now. I think that's a story that's going to continue to play out where you're going to have this divergence of the valuation looks ridiculous and the valuation looks ridiculous, right? These folks over here are going to say this valuation looks ridiculous compared to this company's on a trajectory to hit multi-trillion dollars. And these folks over here say, dude, look at the price to sales ratio. It's at 20. Like, what do you want it at? A price to sales ratio of 40? 100? Like, what's it going to make you happy? Like, right? So that's why I think the stock's an absolute battleground. I think it's going to continue to be. I think a lot of Wall Street is going to have trouble wrapping their head around some of these valuations and paying up for that. It was much easier to pay up for Tesla at 100 billion and 200 billion. At 700 plus billion, it's a lot harder for that hedge fund to say, yeah, let's put 5% of our capital into this or 3% of our capital. So at the end of the day, me, Jeremy Lefebvre, somebody has been holding the stock for the last several years and watched this company, grow over the last decade plus, right? I look at this stock and I say the next 1 or 2 years, I think are going to continue to be very volatile for the stock with not really making too crazy moves up or down, right? I think long term the stock will be a moneymaker, meaning over the next 5 to 10 years. I think there will be a day when Tesla goes on a massive run again, okay? No one knows exactly when that will happen. No one can predict the exact time or date or month or year. But I feel like, this stock, if they execute the way I think they're going to execute with the business model, it's going to go on some crazy run at some point. But I think where people get caught up into a trap is when they think it's going to happen over the next year or two. And you got to understand, this company needs some time to breathe, and sometimes these companies need months to breathe, okay? Or even years to breathe. Remember the last time it took Tesla 6 years to make a major move. Doesn't mean it's going to take 6 years this time around. I'm just saying, like, it's normal for these stocks to take a year off,
take 2 years off, chill out a bit, even though the company makes some great fundamentals, right? And does some amazing things. And then you see the huge run up, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. This was a beast to put together here. I think it's gonna end up being like a 30-minute video. So hope you guys appreciate me going through the bullish case around this and the bearish case, because like I said, no one really, for the most part does it. It's usually either this side or that side, and I want to put them both in a video here and give my 2 cents on where I see the stock going over time. And happy to have done a Tesla video. It feels like it's been forever, okay? If you have any stock market related questions, feel free to text me. I'll basically have that as a pinned comment. Also, join us in Stock Hub. That's our free Discord chat. And check that out also in the description area. Thank you for watching and have a great day.